Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how gas prices are skyrocketing, how Iran is in control, and how there's a huge, big ruling, major ruling in the Supreme Court tonight. We're going to jump straight into it. I got three clips from America First, last night's show from Nick Fuentes. The first two are going to be shorter, and the last one's going to be a little bit longer. Let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. All right. Here we go. Here's the first clip. This is going to be from episode 1706 on the 3 hour and 4 minute marker. Here we go.
Through the pipelines. If it doesn't, it messes with the pressure that pumps the oil out. If the level of oil in the storage facilities gets too low, the quality of the oil degrades. You're literally having problems with minimally low supply, such that the infrastructure will start to become damaged. This is where we are at, and this is starting to be reflected in the price. Trump came out today on True Social and complained that gas stations were price gouging. He said because even though the price of oil is going lower, the price of fuel remains high. And I would imagine the reason that is because the gas stations, maybe unlike the speculators, are pricing in that very soon we might see an energy shortage. Very soon we might run out of refined oil products, petroleum products, because the supply is simply going to run out. We only make so much. We don't make enough for ourselves. And there's only so much oil that's out there that's being bought up by every other country that we could import via the sea. So maybe the gas stations know something speculators don't, which is that very soon, unless there is an agreement to open up the strait in a real way, we're going to run out of fuel. Simply, there's just not going to be enough. And that is what the price is supposed to reflect, of course, is the relative supply and demand of a particular commodity. And it's very funny. I read that post on True Social. Trump says, why is it that oil prices are down, but fuel prices are up? He says it's price gouging. He says we are going to look into these gas stations, fuel providers that are not bringing the prices down because this constitutes profiteering and price gouging and corporate greed. Is this not literally what Joe Biden said when the Ukraine war started? It's identical. Russia also happens to be one of the world's largest energy exporters, oil, natural gas. And when the war in Ukraine started and the United States put sanctions on Russian oil and then blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, which prevented the flow of Russian natural gas, suddenly there was an energy crunch. Just like with Iran, there was a race on the part of the European countries to find alternative energy supplies. They were bidding for liquefied natural gas, which was in very short supply back then. And there was a shortage of oil because the United States put primary and secondary sanctions on Russian oil. And so suddenly fuel prices were going up because the ability to buy and deal in Russian oil and energy trade was restricted. And what did Joe Biden say at that time? He said it's price gouging, it's profiteering. Gas stations are raising their prices.
Yeah. So, moral of the story, Trump is pretty much right in line with what you see most politicians doing, including Joe Biden, right? Gas prices, he's blaming it on he thinks the thing is Donald Trump thinks that he's the one who's like he thinks he's bringing in, he really does think he's bringing in enough gas or enough oil for gas prices to be lower. And he can't figure out why that is, why they're so high. He thinks that these gas companies are ripping people off. Well, this is exactly what Joe Biden said. So here we are. The moral of this story, and I'll keep this quick. The whole point of this is that basically, you know, when Donald Trump told us that he was gonna make America great again or keep America great, he didn't plan on going to war with Iran and doing it for Israel, right? And this whole thing has ended up like he's just another rhetorician. He's just another politician. That's the whole point. And gas prices, even though they've kind of come down a little bit, and he has, I mean, like relative to like almost $5 a gallon where I live, now it's down to like 4.40 a gallon. That seems cheap, right? But like compared to a few years ago, it's really not. I mean, even before the Iran war, it's very still very expensive. But we have to keep in mind this is how politicians work, and Donald Trump is just another politician. All right, so let's go ahead and get this next clip. This is going to be how Iran is in control. I think Nick does a really good job at explaining this part here. We'll jump straight into it.
And so, as bad of a position as Iran is in, they're in it to win it. Their people have rallied behind the regime. The regime has total control over the society. And they've been through hardship for 20
Total
years.
control over society.
Is the United
And he mentions that they go through hardship. They've been through hardship for the last 20 years, he says. I think it's been probably since, I would say, ever since Benjamin Netanyahu went into Congress in, what is it, the 90s, where I would say ever since the Gulf War, the Desert Storm. But let's keep watching.
States in it to win it? Do we have a siege mentality? Are we ready to tolerate a recession? Are we ready to tolerate more inflation? Are we ready to tolerate a collapse of the stock market and everybody's pensions going down? Are we ready for true economic pain? Are we ready for fuel rationing at the gas stations in pursuit of this conflict in Iran? I don't think the will for us to win is there. And so if it's a question of who is exhausted first, I think the United States gets exhausted. I think those economic pressures, that reality is going to set in much more quickly and much more acutely on our side than theirs.
Yep.
And the question then is, what will the United States do?
The point being is we're damn too soft, man. We're way too soft. We can't deal with any of our pleasures of life being compromised, right? Gas prices. Imagine sitting at the gas tank. Our stocks, the boomers who own stocks, and I own stocks. I can't imagine our stocks going to shit, right? Nobody's going to tolerate that. Gas prices, housing costs are already through the roof. What Nick is talking about here, and what I will highlight, is everybody who's young, everybody who's like 35 and younger is already experiencing this. And I would say 30 and younger. Everybody is already experiencing hardship, right? No matter what race, ethnicity, here in America, you're going through hardship if you're 30 years or younger. What now is going to end up happening is the boomers who are promoting this war, if it keeps going, they're going to start feeling it. And that, even though the boomers are still dying every day, literally, they're dying off, they're still in control. And so once their pockets are starting to get hit, they'll shut it down, guaranteed. Watch. As soon as Wall Street starts taking an impact, as soon as those who own capital, those who own stocks start taking a hit, this war will end. Mark my word. Let's keep going.
Are we going to totally acquiesce? Or are we going to try a more intense military operation? But make no mistake about it, this isn't over. This is not over. Like they were saying 2 weeks ago, they said the war is over. Hey, at least it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. By no stretch is this conflict over. None of this is resolved. There is no agreement. People say there's a peace agreement. There's no agreement on any of the issues. And so as long as that is the case, this will go on. And you can have your negotiations and you can have your meetings, and they could be direct or indirect. Fundamentally, it won't matter until something structurally changes and how the two countries are engaging with each other. So that's the latest on the MOU. I want to get a little bit into the Supreme Court, and then we'll talk about our super chats.
And that's what we're going to get into. Let's jump straight to this next one. So the MOU is a memorandum of understanding. You'll hear this coming up, especially if you are watching America First with Nick Fuentes. You'll hear this MOU come up. He's been talking about this for a long time. It's a memorandum of understanding is kind of it's a political term, and that's how a geopolitical term, and it's basically been destroyed every time every time America. If you, I mean, if you watch clips of the vice president, who I don't hate, by the way, Nick is very suspect of JD Vance, as you should be suspect of anybody who just comes up in power, because they're going to have people behind them with agendas. That's just the way. That's the nature of our society. Unfortunately, we're run by factions of power, factions of power, as far as factions of power, as far as like different oligarchies are concerned, different multimillionaires, multi-billionaires, all these different things. But yeah, I mean, the Vice President Vance was trying to address this, and he comes out and he's like, every time, he goes, every time we try to come up with a peace agreement, next thing you know, Israel's bombing another country. Like, what do you do with that? Or not another country. He's bombing Lebanon. They're bombing Lebanon. The same countries they're bombing, and they're killing innocent people. How in God's name do you even deal with that, dude? I mean, truly, at what point are we going to start to realize that maybe the real issue is us being able to contain the country in the Middle East? Maybe that's what really needs to happen. All right, let's check out this next one. This is going to be the longer clip here. Yeah, it's the big ruling in the Supreme Court, and this is going to probably run for the next. I'm going to go ahead and put this on speed 1.25, and then we're going to play this here. Let's go. Let's just jump straight into it. Big ruling in the Supreme Court, or at least supposed to be.
And the Supreme Court ruling said, in fact, the president does have discretion to terminate TPS. He doesn't have to ask a federal judge. He doesn't have to ask Homeland Security. The executive branch can terminate at will who gets to stay here, which is a great ruling. That is a huge step in restoring sovereignty. The other big ruling is concerning asylum seeker.
So basically, we can call the shots as to who can stay in this country and who can't, right? Like, that's a huge deal for America. Other countries do that all the time. Try going into Japan, right? Try going anywhere else. Try getting into Poland. Like, it's not going to happen. But it's a huge deal here in the United States now that we can control who can stay and who can't.
It used to be the case that if a foreign national is seeking asylum, very similar to temporary protected status, asylum seekers under a law from the 1980s and a UN convention, they have certain rights in our country. If an illegal immigrant, if a foreign national comes into the United States and they claim asylum, which is a very specific thing because of humanitarian reasons, for political reasons, because of a fear of persecution, then that triggers a legal process where we actually have to review their claim and validate if it's legitimate. Are you eligible, in other words, for asylum in the United States? And what asylum means, it's very similar to TPS. You get these protections from deportation. It's contrary to our own law and to international law to remove someone that legally has asylum. But this has been exploited as a loophole for illegal immigration. And what happens is you will have these nonprofit liberal organizations. They go to Mexico, they go to the Northern Triangle countries, and they bring lawyers. Nonprofits, NGOs funded by our own State Department and funded by billionaires. They will send lawyers to Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and these lawyers, they speak Spanish. They will.
And I mentioned this on one of my previous shows recently. I think it was yesterday or the day before, but like with the Somalians in Minnesota, that whole thing, these refugees that come in, just like asylum seekers, that whole thing is set up by people here in the United States already. I work in logistics, so I use the word logistical or logistics all the time, but it's a complete, like, it's a business. It's a transaction. It's a logistical endeavor where, like, when people come up, there's a lot of intentional actions here in the United States. Everybody thinks that people are just crossing the borders and then like freelancing and going wherever they want as far as illegal aliens are concerned. But what a lot of it ends up being is people here in the United States that are actually making it happen, that are ready to prepare and prepared to meet these the immigrants who are coming in, to give them social security cards, to give them license, to give them access to jobs immediately, housing, right? Affordable housing. There's an entire business that's going on in this country where people are doing this, and I've seen it firsthand, truly firsthand. I've seen it. And we have to keep that in mind, that it's not just people just coming over the border recklessly, even though that is happening. It's also people here in the United States, mostly like first or second generation people that have already come in, that these oligarchs are funding, and they're like, "Oh, hey, do you want your cousins to come in, your and all your friends to come in?" Sounds sound that sounds like a cope, but it is. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not. It's like that is what's happening. They will hire like Somalians who have been in the country to who have been educated, or people who are second, third generation Somalians, or second, third generation Africans, or second and third generation Mexicans, or second and third generation South Americans. And because they've been educated here in this country, just like I said in the other episode, in one of my previous sets, in my episode 2 days ago, that they get an education, and all of a sudden they get motivated and they get sponsored to like but funded to basically bring in their people, and they feel tied to those people and they feel obligated. It's not like they're doing it out of spite. It's that they feel a connection to these people, and it's happening within our own leadership here in this country. Let's keep going.
Coach those people living there on how to get to America, where to go when you arrive, and what to say when you get here. And it goes something like this. They'll send a lawyer down there, Spanish speakers. They'll tell these people, if you surrender at a port of entry on the U.S. border, you'll be apprehended by Border Patrol. But if you read this script, you say this, and this, then that will trigger the asylum process. What you're going to do is you go to the port of entry. You're going to get picked up. Don't worry about it. That's okay. And when you get picked up and when you're detained by Border Patrol, you're going to tell them that you're seeking asylum, and here's why. And you're going to say these specific words. And when you say those magic words, it triggers the asylum process. And what the United States then has to do is we actually have to process the claim. Now, you might think, what's so bad about that? These illegal aliens are going to sit in a waiting room at the border while we consider whether they're a real asylum seeker, whether they're a real asylee. Here's the problem. There's a giant backlog of asylum seekers. Millions. I think it's hundreds of thousands. It might be in the millions of people that we're trying to get to. Huge backlog. The judges are way behind. We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough attorneys to adjudicate all these asylum claims. So what do we do with all these people that are backlogged? Well, you got to detain them. If somebody shows up to the border, makes a claim, and there's millions of them, and we don't have the judges and the lawyers to speedily get through all these cases, what do we do with these millions and millions of asylum seekers? Well, you either got to detain them at the border, which is very expensive because then you're going to need facilities for that. You can't put them in cages. We remember what happened under Trump #1. You can't put them in cages or tents or alligator Alcatraz. So what are you going to do? Well, you got to start building like hotels for them.
Yeah, you can't do that because of the media, mostly the liberal media, because they go ape shit over that. But yeah, and remember in New York City, the hotels were being occupied under Joe Biden. Remember that? It was crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, it's a great country to be in for everybody, including people who don't belong here. This is the best country in the world. Think about that. But Nick's about to go into how like we can't afford to do that. Like we're talking about millions of people. We can't afford. We do have the infrastructure, but in order to create these things, it would cost so much money that it's not worth it. The best choice would be to send them back. Here we go.
You got to start building bedrooms and toilets and schools and hospitals, and you have to build all these amenities and these are millions of people. That's going to be like a city. If we have a city with the population of all of the asylum seekers and other illegal aliens that were processing their claims, that would be the biggest city in America. Mm-hmm. So the federal government doesn't have all these facilities. We got to send them out. So we tell them, go out into the interior of the country, go to Chicago, go to New York, go to Minneapolis, go to California, go out into the country, and we'll give you a court date. We'll send you some mail when we make a decision about your asylum claim. And then these people are never seen again because that's their ticket inside the country. That's their ticket. Then they're in. Once they're in, and they get a job, and they get their subsidized housing, and they get their subsidized everything, and they get their asylum thing in the mail. Maybe they don't ever, and then they rip it up. So this
subsidize everything, meaning that it's coming from those of us who pay taxes, which we already talked about this in previous episodes, that it's the largest class that pays taxes in this country is the white people. Second are the Latinos, and third are the blacks. And it's coming out of our pocket, right? It's not going to be good for anybody because it's just not. The more immigrants that come in, the less that our tax dollars go to us, truly. And this is what like liberals don't understand, especially white liberal women, and demasculinize or effeminate men do the same thing. Even minorities, I see minorities here in Pittsburgh, and they're like talking about how like, this is stolen land, so on and so forth. It's like, dude, no, that we're no land. If you're gonna basically say that this is stolen land, then nobody deserves to live in any country that they live in, because I guess according to anthropologists, that we all come from Africa anyway, and we all had to migrate out of Africa. That's where they think humanity started. So like none of us belong anywhere. So at what point do we get to say, hey, this is our nation, this is a sovereign nation? I think we've established that, right? We're the country that sponsors the most amount of missionary work as far as churches. We're the country that gives the most amount of help and aid to any other country. Like we funded the United Nations up to 60% more than any other country for like ever since its like birth, ever since they started it. It's like, dude, if we don't deserve sovereignty, if the United States doesn't deserve sovereignty, if we are on stolen land, then everybody is on stolen land, and nobody deserves sovereignty. Nobody. Let's keep going.
Supreme Court decision said that if an illegal alien shows up at the border claiming asylum, as long as they never enter the United States, we don't have to let them in while we consider their asylum claim. It says that if they set foot on the land, then we got to process their claim and keep them here. But as long as they never set foot inside the country, in other words, if they get picked up at the border, but they never set foot on our side of it, we can process their claim while they wait in Mexico. And this is a story. This is from the New York Times giving a little summary on this. It says, quote, the Supreme Court on Thursday let the Trump administration end temporary protections that have allowed more than 350,000 people from Haiti and Syria to live and work legally in the U.S. The decision regarding TPS applies only to people from those two countries, but it will have implications for all 1.3 million TPS holders in the United States who come from more than a dozen countries. TPS allows foreign nationals to remain in the country for up to 18 months when a crisis such as an earthquake or armed conflict makes returning to their home countries unsafe. But the measure, which can be renewed by the federal government, has become all but permanent for recipients from some nations where crises have spanned many years. Justice Sam Alito said in Thursday's decision that federal law prohibited courts from second-guessing an administration's determination of which nationalities deserve protection and which don't. The Trump administration remains locked in litigation over whether it can end protections for more than 1 million people from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Honduras, Myanmar, Nepal, Venezuela, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen. Protections for 4 countries, El Salvador, Lebanon, Ukraine, and Sudan, have not been affected. In a separate decision that also split 6-3 with liberals dissenting.
Yeah, I speeded it up a little bit more. We're at 1.5.
Asylum along the U.S.-Mexico border by physically preventing them from crossing into the U.S. as they sought protection from persecution. The administration had asked the court to permit the government to revive the policy first used in 2016. Under that so-called turn-back policy, the government had stopped asylum seekers from setting foot on U.S. soil where federal law would have entitled them to try to claim asylum and receive protections. So these are some pretty big decisions. And it's a white bill. Because what this does is it gives the administration the legal tools to reduce the number of illegals that come here and deport more of the illegals that already live here. But here's the catch, as always. Here's the problem.
Here we go.
Okay? The problem is we already have these tools at our disposal in many cases. We have now 10,000 ICE agents that were hired in the past year. We bought $700 million worth of warehouses to detain illegals. I think we bought 6 or 9 warehouses and facilities to detain illegals. $80 billion was allocated by the big, beautiful bill last year for immigration enforcement. And we're not doing any of it. We're not doing any of it.
Remember when the liberals were going crazy about the big, beautiful bill? Where's that been? Nobody's saying anything. This is the world that we live in, man. It's like, before you get upset about anything, and I've learned this the hard way, believe me, just hold your breath for 20 seconds and the political atmosphere will probably change. Truly. Just it changes. The cycles are on weeks, sometimes maybe a month and a half, 2 months. The cycles are always changing. I mean, like, legitimately, these people are just gaslighting the average person. They're literally blowing smoke up your ass, quite literally. Sometimes, not literally, but metaphorically, right? They're just they are completely gaslighting the entire population. And this is why I'm doing this show, because I want people to, like, be able to realize, hey man, like, well, first of all, I want to I want to expand Nick's content. I think it's a great idea. There hasn't been a pre-show that I'm aware of. Maybe there are smaller ones. I don't know. I'm not aware of them, but I want to be that guy who, like, helps bridge that gap between, well, I want to be the guy who, I'm a Xenio. I've told you this before. I'm like 45 years old, and I want to be that guy that tells the young kids, hey man, I get you. I've been there. I've been dealing with a lot of shit for a lot of years. Hey, let's figure out how we're going to plan through the future. And when I found Nick Fuentes when he was like 18, 19 years old, I was like, dude, this kid really has something special. Now he's a grown ass man. He's not a kid anymore, even though I would consider a 28-year-old. It would be nice to be 28. I think that's young, but who cares? Like, that's a grown ass man. He's doing his thing, and he's trying to give you that grand strategy. And that's the thing I'm talking about in this show, is this grand strategy that's going on, that Nick is talking about. It's not just about the highlight reels. It's not just about him saying the N-word or talking about this, or, giving you that viral clip. These are the things that I want to talk about. It's a constant story that he is bringing about. Let's get back into the clip here before I digress, which I already have done.
And the dirty secret about all these different programs is this is effectively a way to get cheap labor into our country.
Yep.
Where do all of these Haitian TPS claimants live?
Yep.
A significant chunk of these Haitians protected by the TPS program live in Ohio. Now that the Supreme Court has overturned a federal judge's ruling that Trump cannot strip away their protections, there has been a huge outcry of protest from Ohio's former governor, John Kasich, and the Ohio business community. Now, why is the Ohio business community so opposed to these Haitian refugees being deported? Is it because the Ohio business community is uniquely humanitarian? Those Ohio business leaders are notorious for their charity and benevolence. Obviously, the reason that the Ohio business community is against this decision is because they employ these Haitians protected under TPS. These are people that are in legal limbo. These are people that have no legal right to be here. They have no residency, no work permit, no nothing. They are in perpetuity, effectively illegal permanent residents of America. And as such, they're something like indentured servants working under the table under any conditions set out by their employer. As long as these Haitians are under a program where they could be deported at any time, they only have 18 months at any given moment at the most, then they're subject to the whims of their employers. It makes them very good employees. And so why is the business community against this decision in particular? Because this decision in particular affects this nationality, which has migrated to this particular state and is working low-skilled jobs, probably for very low wages and no benefits for the business owners in the state. That's why they're against it. That's what all these programs are. And why is this relevant? Because we know where the illegal immigrants are. We know where they are. It would be easy to deport all of them. They're working on the farms. They're working in the meat processing plants. They're working as couriers, as DoorDash drivers, as Uber drivers, and they're in the Home Depot parking lot working as contractors and doing all kinds of blue collar work, construction work. We know exactly where they are. Why are they not being massively deported?
This is an interesting point that he's about to bring up. It would be relatively easy because we know where they work, and if ICE was just roaming the streets, it would basically make it uncomfortable for them to leave, to go to work and provide for their families, and then they would naturally leave. So let's go.
Why are they not being removed? It would be so easy. All we would have to do is what we were doing before, which is patrols, visible raids. All you need is to have ICE out in full force in the cities, in the neighborhoods where we know they live. And you know what that would do? It would stop them from showing up to work.
Right.
The illegal aliens aren't showing up to work when they see ICE around every corner. When they're on the Ring app or they're on Nextdoor and they're saying, icy roads, watch out. I saw an ICE agent. I saw an ICE vehicle. If you're driving some pickup truck full of landscaping equipment, or you're driving a truck full of carpentry equipment, and you're Hispanic, and you see ICE around every corner, and you're getting pulled over, guess what you're not going to do? Go to work.
Right.
And if you don't go to work, you can't make money.
Right.
And if you can't make money, how are you going to live in America? If you can't go out and do your grocery shopping and take the kids to school and go out on a Saturday night and go to work, well, maybe it becomes attractive at that point to self-deport. Maybe at that point it becomes attractive to take the $1,000 and the free plane ticket and sign up on the Home app, the DHS One app, and self-deport back to Mexico or back to those Northern Triangle countries. That's how you do it. You would start deporting people from the job sites. You get visible again, and the rest of them eventually will.
And this is the hardest part about our society, as far as like agreeing with what Nick's saying. It's like we are the most compassionate country to ever live. No other country feels this way. As far as what Nick is saying is like he's trying to build what's the word I'm thinking about? Anyway, God, I can't think of it. It's like when you have like a type of gut, you have like a type of anyway. I'm just going to drop that. But basically, what we need to do is we need to have the courage to basically say, "Hey, we have to be able to get people out of this country." And our country is so filled with so many compassionate people that this sort of mentality that Nick is describing, this sort of grit is the word I was thinking of. Grit. This whole thing is most people are not doing that today in this country. Yeah, this country's so soft. Most people are very compassionate and they see it as progression. Most Americans see their ability to want to let everyone else in as progression. They don't realize that it's going to cost their children, great children, their grandchildren, great grandchildren, great grandchildren. They have no idea. They have no idea. They don't realize that this whole thing is going to cost the future. All right. Especially for the white race, especially for Christianity. It's going to be a major problem. So this is why I'm doing this show, is to basically, hey, let's talk about these things. I love talking about Nick's show. Nick's show is really the only show that I can watch consistently. All these other ones I just kind of tolerate, really, truly, but he's the most intellectually stimulating show. As you can tell, when I was stuttering recently, like I'm not always like the sharpest, wittiest person, but if you give me time, I can really. I have a relatively high IQ. I took an IQ test recently. It was great. Much higher than I thought. Believe me, it was over 130, a little over 130. I was like, damn, dude, that's not bad. And it's just that I'm not a witty person, and I'm very jealous of people who are witty. It's like people like Nick and people who are comedians, like they can just think of stuff on the spot, where it takes me time to think about things and process things. And then all of a sudden I start my perspicacity, right? It comes out, and it's like, it just takes me a little bit of time. But when I do it, it takes me, and it's just, that's the way I am. But let's finish up this clip. We're going to close this out. I know I digress. I don't really give a shit. Quite honestly, nobody's watching these videos. So I'm just kind of using this as therapy right now at this point, especially at 30 minutes in, if you're still watching this, which most people won't. So I don't really care. Let me know if you see this. I'm flipping you off. I'd love to have this come back and bite me in the face, just so I know that somebody watched this video. But anyway, let's keep going.
Take care of themselves. That's how you would do it. But the reason the administration will not actually engage in a massive deportation operation is because all these people are part of the economy. They're not just cheap labor, but they're also consumers. So what happens if we deport 350,000 people from Haiti and Syria? That's 350,000 fewer consumers, and it's maybe 175,000 fewer workers. And that means less tax money. It means less demand, aggregate demand, less consumption. It means there's going to be upward pressure on prices because you're going to need to pay workers a higher wage, more benefits. And by the way, these programs, H-1B, H-2A, all of these special programs, even the TPS for that matter, the ones you know about, the ones you don't know about, all of these immigration programs got started under the presidency of George Bush because of pressure from the Chamber of Commerce. That's why these programs were created in the first place. That's who made them. They made these programs 35 years ago so that they could get as many people as possible into the country to work these jobs and grow the market. It's the same groups that are protesting against it all these years later while we try to undo the damage that was done, stopping the people at the border and deporting the ones that are already here. It's the business community. It was even the same in 1965. In the 1965 Immigration Act, we undid the national origins quota. We changed the formula for how we calculate how many immigrants from each continent can come to the United States. For a long time, ever since the Immigration Act in the 1920s, we had a formula where most of the immigrants had to come from Europe and North America, and very few could come from Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And it was racist. That's why it was created. And that was the program. We prioritized immigrants from white countries. And then beginning in the 1950s and then culminating in the 65 Immigration Act, we retooled that formula under pressure from the SPLC and the businesses to say that we can get actually as many immigrants from Asia and Latin America as we can take. And the reason being is because that is where the population growth was happening. That was the source of infinite U.S. population growth. So it's always the same story. It's always the business community and their insatiable appetite for more workers and consumers, which is why you get more Asians and Latin Americans in the mix at all. That's why you get a higher volume of them. And now that they're all here, that's why we can't deport them.
So, like Nick says, right? Great point. It's the business community. It's the business sector that's always pushing. The reason why Trump shut down his mass deportations was because of Wall Street, the business world. They need the workers. They constantly need the workers. I know I work in the business sector. I need the workers. We need the workers. They're like the American white people don't want to do the work that I'm involved in, right? And it's not bad pay. It really is. It's a gig economy type of pay, right? Like it's like Uber or Lyft type of thing. Not going to get much more into that, but like it's Americans want not just the hustle money, they want actual they want benefits, they want security, they want to get paid on sick days, so on and so forth. I get it. I totally get it. And I think that Americans should have that. And that maybe the first generation or the immigrants that come in don't get that, right? But what that means for us Americans, people in my position, people in my position or similar, is that means you have to put yourself in the upper echelon. That means in the top 20%, right? Otherwise, you're going to be screwed. Boomers, and I said this on another video, and I said that. I know I've said that multiple times, but in another video, I said, hey, if you want to live like a boomer, you have to be in the top 10, 50%. 10, 15% today. If you make in a household, and if you make $250,000, It's like living in a household where in the 90s that was making 80, $90,000. And it's even harder. Like if you're making $200,000 in a household and you were in the 90s making 80, 90,000, you're living less quality of life than they are, right? So anyway, let's get back to the video. Um, m- Mass immigration is a major problem. We'll finish this up.
Because we need them here to work and to buy and to receive welfare and to vote and do all the things that these people do.
Right.
So the question is not whether we have the legal authority to strip away their status. It's not a question of whether we have the authority to prevent them from coming into the country. It's whether the administration has the political will to actually do it. Because you could do it. You could do it all day long. Are we going to see Haitians being dragged out by the hundreds of thousands of Ohio? I seriously doubt that. I would love to see that happen. I would love to see these 10,000 ICE agents that we hired. Please, if there is someone in DHS listening, send 5,000 ICE and CBP to Springfield, Ohio, and start deporting as many Haitians as you can. Get them the fuck out of America. And then I hope the rest of them get the message. Be visible, be obnoxious, go out there and parade around in the streets and make it so that they start to leave the country. And if we see 100,000 Haitians be deported or self-deport, then I'll consider that a great victory. But somehow I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-mm.
That's a sad reality. And by the way, it's the same way in every one of these states. In Ohio, they don't want to remove the Haitians. In Texas, they don't want to remove the Mexicans. Governor Greg Abbott is in bed with the major profiteers in agriculture that build entire cities for illegal aliens. They're literally giant, unauthorized, unincorporated tent cities where illegal immigrants live. And Greg Abbott knows all about it, and they won't shut it down because those are the big donors. They won't do it in Iowa because of all the industry that goes on there. They won't do it in Nebraska or Kansas. It is in these Republican states, surprisingly, Ohio, Texas, Iowa, where these major donors that make money from this class of low-skilled laborers, they control the GOP there, and that's why you're never going to see the deportations, even in Georgia. Trump administration deported 300 South Koreans working illegally in the Hyundai factory. The Republican governor called the administration and told them to stop. They said, we need those people. The administration apologized and said, we're so sorry, it won't happen again. So whether it's Haitians in Ohio, South Koreans in Georgia, Hispanics in Iowa or Texas, it's Republicans representing the business interests, representing the Chamber of Commerce, the business community, which is why you never get the enforcement. This is why I tell people, don't kid yourself. The idea that Democrats are going to flood the country with illegals and Republicans are going to send them all back, it's just bullshit.
Yeah, it's total bullshit. I think that's where we'll leave off, or at least end this part for tonight. But yeah, it's total bullshit, man. Like the Republicans are not trying to get rid of illegals. In fact, they're the ones who employ them. The Democrats want to bring them in because they want to end I guess, the patriarchal white suppression, the evil white man, which is such a farce, such bullshit. Like, I wish we can get past that. I would love for so many Democrats to get on board with the reality of things so that we can all get together and take down the actual establishment. It's not white people, man. It's not your average mom and dad. It's not, someone like myself who's just trying to build their own legacy, trying to make a dent in the universe. It's not, and raise children. We're not the ones who are like oppressing anybody. And these oligarchies that are running this country and the media have these people so fooled, both on the right and the left. And the right, it's the Zionism; on the left, it's the liberalism and the homosexuality stuff. It's like, dude, just be gay. It's fine. I don't care. But like, chill with the whole trans thing. That's my whole thing about the trans community is like, where was the gay community? Like, if I were gay, I would have been like, and there were some, but I'd be like, dude, you and I don't fuck. I don't fuck with you. Like, get away from me. Like, but anyway, man, that's it for tonight. We're going to close up shop. We're at like 45 minutes. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. This is the America First pregame show. And we'll be here at 10 o'clock. I was about 11 minutes late tonight. But that's it. Like the video, hit subscribe to my channel. Much appreciated. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys on the. In the meantime, I'll be making some. I'll be doing my notes to prepare for the next show. Is what I mean. So I appreciate you guys. All right, peace.